And now Wiley beating South Oak Cliff, particularly as convincing as they did. They're a 4-loss team, and I think people will go, how good? I don't, they'll have a good shot against Highland Park, but Highland Park's playing pretty well. I mean, their Highland Park's game with Mansfield Legacy, I mean, people ask, they go, how can you be in the third round of the playoffs and, the game essentially be over 10 minutes into the first quarter? I mean, and it's just, a lot of it's kind of a matchup thing. Teams don't match up well with the spread offense, or they do match up well and they take it away, and now all of a sudden the team can't pass. So there's a little bit of that. And then if Legacy would have played Wiley last week and Highland Park played South Oak Cliff, it might be Legacy again against Highland Park. So there, you have to take into account the matchups. But again, I also think Highland Park is a little bit of a surprising story, because they're a really good team, but they're not a great team by any stretch, and they could certainly win this week, and then all of a sudden they're in the state semifinals.
Sure. I think you and Chris both said SAC was going to win last week. I just want to point that out.
I think we both tried to go with SAC, so I'm sure we have some Wiley parents and players who are going, oh, you underestimated us, and I wouldn't underestimate them. I mean, the Cameron Kelly is a terrific player for them, and it takes more than one player, but when you have a player that can make a special play, and it could be a 3rd and 6, or it could be an 88-yard run. I mean, at different points in the game, that is sort of the leverage that makes a difference. And they got it rolling against a very good South Oak Cliff team. I mean, I wouldn't put it, South Oak Cliff wasn't as good as we thought. Wiley's just better than we gave him credit for.
Gotcha. Well, I always like it when we have full disclosure, when we make faux pas like that. Well, that's good for the wrap-up. So let's move on. So now 4A Division 2. What do you think? We're in the regional finals, so it's now it gets serious.
Yeah, and there's no Cinderellas anymore. You're pretty good if you're playing. I mean, you might have played a 4th place team here, but by week 3, you've probably played a team that won a district championship, looked really good, or you beat a team that just beat a pretty good district championship team. Right. So I really like, and Wichita Falls is a team. Now I don't think very many 4A teams are going to beat Aledo, but I do like Wichita Falls, and that's where my old guy, venerable status comes in. Danny Russell, their coach, I covered when he played at Garland High in the 80s.
Right.
And he was actually part of a really well-known staff at Garland High School in '99 that won the state championship under Joe Martin, who's really well thought of. Well, the defensive coordinator for that team is Jeff Jordan, the Garland coach. The offensive coordinator of that team was Tom Westerberg.
Oh, wow.
So at Allen. So, I mean, that, in the annals of coaching, that entire staff is incredibly well thought of. So Wichita Falls doesn't, they've got some nice players, but there's nobody that's, super duper terrific. So, and Aledo does. So, they're really well coached. The Aledo staff is really well thought of, so there's not going to be many tricks, pulled in this game.
Sure.
Mesquite Petit's playing Ennis, and I've seen both of those teams. I saw Ennis for the first time last week, and they're a wow team. I mean, they've got a running back, Terrence Williams, who's going to Baylor, and they don't even have to feature him. They've got a terrific linebacker, a safety, receiver, returner, Jay-Sean Johnson, who's going to Texas Tech. They've got some players. They're very well coached. And you look back, they had that great run under Sam Harrell, and when he had his sons as the quarterback, and they had plenty of other talent. And then they kind of knew Ennis was going to dip. And Coach Alvarez came in, and there was a little bit of a transition, but they do lots of good things. They're really talented. And Mesquite Petit is a team that Cody Edwards, who's Tim Brown's nephew, wears number 81, and he's kind of that sort of Tim Brown player. I mean, he'll score long on you. He'll do the returns. Lane Novy's a good, tough running quarterback. They have Malik Jefferson on defense. Their defense actually hadn't played as well as what you might think, because their coach is a defensive coordinator. but they're so talented on offense, and they get in that fast break kind of thing that, you know, they may wear their defense out a little bit because it doesn't take them long to score, and then boom, they're back out there again. So I think there's a little bit of that dynamic. I think Poteet may have a little more overall balance and have played a little bit better teams. So when they see the big 3 or 4 guys for Ennis, those are kind of guys they play every week. And I don't know if Ennis, they're getting into the territory, well, boy, these guys are bigger than the ones last week.
Right.
So, but they're still a good team. That's a big toss-up game.
You know, I was able to see Poteet during their senior night. We're doing a story on Ref Story. It's going to come out next month, and so I went out there and interviewed those guys, and their offense was quite powerful. I mean, their D1 commits didn't really think much of their defense that night, but I have to agree with you there. It certainly was fun to watch. I mean, it was back and forth. It was a high-scoring game.
Yeah, and it's hard now because there's just not very many Stuff'em defenses, and you can see a defense look terrible in one game and then, you know, maybe okay the next. It's very hard to judge defenses right now because there's no consistency. Nobody's, you know, there's very few in 5A, 4A that have the 8.2 points allowed per game kind of stats that you used to see for years.